So yeah, so I'm going to talk about something. This is going to be the sort of something to wake you up after the break or give you an opportunity to sleep for another 10 minutes. This is either something that's really useful or it's a parlor trick, and I'm not sure which it is. I'll let you judge. So the challenge that I face as a practitioner, working with very many clients and working with the OT just from a, contributing to it, testing it, trying it out standpoint, but mostly in the context of my client-specific work, is I have literally dozens of different configurations of the Open Toolkit that I need to use and change to on a moment-by-moment basis, right? I'm working on something. I get an email from a client, hey, the thing you gave us last week, it doesn't work, what do I do? Switch context to their configuration, oh yeah, do this, do that, or oh, this is broken, ooh, here's your fix. All right, go back to the other project, get another email from another client, right? That is over the course of 20 minutes, yeah? That's my life, most days. So there's a lot of different ways you could do that. In the past, I had different directories with different Open Toolkits and stuff. That was before Oxygen. So Oxygen turned my world upside down in many ways, but including keeping me dressed, which is, my wife appreciates, but
so do we.
yeah, this is not a clothing optional conference, thank God. So, yeah, what Oxygen did is they put the toolkit under Oxygen such that if you just put stuff in that toolkit, a whole lot of things would work. So for example, if I deploy all of my different configurations and customizations as Open Toolkit plugins, it just works in Oxygen, right? I don't have 90% of my configuration headaches that I ate for the first 15 years of my career as an XML, HTML consultant go away. So it turns out to be a tremendous value to me to have exactly one toolkit instance, right? And any tool that can use an XML catalog, I can point it at that. Any tool that needs to be able to run the toolkit can run that, and then of course just running the toolkit itself, which is something I do a lot, I can just run that one instance. But now I have this configuration management challenge. How do I address that? Oh, I forgot my animation. Yeah, there we go. Fun with Windows or Microsoft clip art there. So my solution, after I came to really understand Git, I don't know, about 2 years ago now, was one of the really cool things about Git is that you can take any directory on your computer and you can make it a Git repository. Yeah? So I go to my DITA-OT directory, git init, git add -a, git commit -n initial setup. There you go. It is now a Git repository in which the initial configuration, whatever it happened to be at this moment, is now committed. Yeah? Now, my trick here, and this is really the parlor trick part of it, is I make one branch per configuration. So I want to work with 185. I'm going to create that branch. I'm going to check out master. Now I want to have also 2.x. I'm going to create another branch for that. Delete everything. Copy in the files from the 2. Whatever distribution. Add those. Commit them. Now I want to create a branch for my client, example.org. They make some of the best examples in the business. So I'm checking out that branch, and then you can see now I have some branches here. Yeah? And just repeat, and after, a couple of weeks, you'll have 20 of those. But because Git makes it so easy to switch between branches, that makes it, almost instantaneous for me to switch configurations. Yeah, it turns out to be really good. Now, you want to be sure and include your jar files. Depending on your default Git configuration, you might have a global Git ignore that ignores jar files, because normally you wouldn't commit those to your source repository, right?
Whereby include, you mean exclude?
Include and Git ignore.
Yes. Here, I am telling my git ignore file do not ignore star dot. The exclamation mark here means don't ignore star.jar. Yeah? So even if my global git ignore configuration did exclude star.jar, this would locally override that. Yeah? Be sure, however, to exclude the generated files, right? Because when you run the integration process, there's a number of files that get generated or regenerated. And you don't want to commit those, because if you do, it will cause you pain. And this is, this is a listing of my actual git ignore file from my Open Toolkit. Yeah. So here's the trick that is really the non-obvious thing that I did, which is there's a challenge. So let's say I want to switch between a 1.8.5 base branch and a 2.0 base branch. There's a whole lot of stuff that's different between those. And also, if I have deployed some client-specific plugins and those weren't committed on the branch, right? I was just doing some testing, deployed a plugin, didn't work, I want to switch to another branch. The way Git works, if you switch to a branch, you do anything special, those files are still there. If they weren't ever committed, it doesn't know about them, they're still there. Then things get bad. That's not good. So my trick is I create what I call an empty branch, which is a branch that is empty. That is, it has no files committed on that branch. And this is the process by which you create that. And then you can see down here, the third line from the bottom, git checkout -f empty. The -f means force. That is, throw away anything that you would otherwise not throw away, because Git tries not to, throw anything away. So that's now created an empty branch. It's empty in the sense that nothing that was committed to Git is there. Things that were never in Git would still be there, so I do an rm -rf star to get rid of those, and now I check out the branch I want. So you do that and everything is clean, ready to go. So some gotchas, right? Not committing jar files. And this one really bit me a lot until I figured out what the hell I was doing wrong. So if you want to check out, the symptom for me was I check out a different configuration and suddenly PDF generation fails. What the hell? It worked 10 minutes ago when I was working on this, and then I switched to another client, and then I came back, and now it's not working. What the heck? And the problem is that, the PDF plugin has its own jar files in that plugin. And if you don't remember to make sure that those are committed as well, then it works when you committed it, but then if you switch away and come back, they're not there anymore because they were never committed to your repository, and then it blows up. Don't commit generated files, because what happens is you regenerate them, Git sees those as changes, and then it makes it hard to switch, because now it's like, oh, you can't switch away from this branch because you have uncommitted changes. And it's like, well, what do you mean? I just ran the integrator. No. So you want to make sure you get those straightened out, and then using that empty branch to switch between branches after you've made changes that you don't want to preserve. So, questions? Yes? We need a microphone? Here on the end?
I don't use Git, but I use Subversion, which
yes, I'm so sorry.
Just happens to be what I'm a bit of, so it was very easy to set up. How do you structure your stuff? Do you put everything in separate folders, or do you, because I use my entire DITA system is in Subversion, so I have I have everything in there. I've got my map files, my topic files, and one of the things that has kind of surprised me, because in the Open Toolkit it really likes everything at a flat structure.
Oh, you're talking
by
about
default, yes.
Yeah, you're talking about how do you structure your source
Yes.
files?
Yes.
Maps above everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless you can't. But
Yes.
yeah.
So I'm a bit worried about whether I've structured them properly. And then when I start to create projects, I haven't done this a lot. Right now I'm mostly only using Oxygen as running. I haven't got a lot of XSLT files that I've amassed at the moment, but I'm not exactly sure how to best structure them under Git so that I don't get problems with heavy folders, because at the time, right now, when I get my renderings and things that that I'm going to overwrite, that I don't want to keep, I put them in a sort of a separate file, a separate folder that I don't ever commit. It's not
right.
part of Subversion. It's just there, but it's not it's not part of the system. But I'm a bit confused about how I should best if you have any tips for how to best structure a Git folder sort of structure to get it so that it's optimized, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're asking about the source content or if you're talking about like your plugins.
Both, really. I
Both.
mean, if you if you have different advice for both,
Yeah, well, I don't want to address the source content only because this is a lightning talk and that's kind of out of scope for what I was talking about. For the plugins, I manage each of my plugins as a separate Git repository. And then depending on how complex I'm doing things, I might be using them as submodules from another one, like in DITA for publishers, that's what I do. For a simple client, I'll just have a Git repository with their stuff. My personal practice is I use Ant scripts that deploy plugins from the client's source code location, wherever it is on my machine, to my open toolkit. I never do my development directly in the OT, right? I'm always doing it here. So, I realize now I should have probably mentioned that. Because I'm never modifying my code under development in the OT location, I'm always copying to it, right? So there's never a conflict, right?
If you use Subversion, you might consider, if you want to kind of combine what you're doing so far with Eliot's approach, you might want to consider including the toolkit via SVN externals. So you have a separate repository with your DITA Open toolkit, and you can include that in your project via the externals property. And then the release cycles can be different, so you can change your OT without changing your source files, and they're not tagged in the same way. So that might make sense. But we can talk about that later if you like.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Eliot.
Thank you.